Welcome back to the AM show here on the JoyNews channel. It's time for us to look into the papers to talk about what the papers are reporting this morning. And we are fortunate enough to have on Zoom the Executive Director of the Media Foundation for West Africa, Suleimana Brahima, to be our guest this morning to help us go into the papers. Good morning to you, sir. I hope all is well.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. All is well.
Great. Now, I have with me the Daily Graphic, I have the Finder newspaper, the Daily Guide, the Ghanaian Times, the New Crusading Guide, the Publisher, the Meridian. Let's start with the Daily Graphic. On the front page, it says, Expert Brainstorm Constitution Review. Also, Presec, Prempe at Disco, Cruise to Final, Mahama Support Dialogue on Economy. Mr. Brahima, amongst the three schools, is your school represented in there?
Well, not at all. I went to one of the great schools in the Ashanti region, Tepa Secondary School, which I think some 2 years ago
did wonders.
Performed creditably by outstanding schools like Wegehe and others. And last year, I think they were into the quarterfinals. So this time around, not that far, but we remain a great school.
Okay, all right then. Let's pray. My school has never made it to, we've never crossed the regions. The day we will, I've already promised my team that would take a whole day on JoyNews to celebrate the school. So congrats to your school, you've been there before, mine hasn't, so I'm expecting it. But let's start from the brainstorming on the Constitution Review. Now, a research and advocacy organization, the Institute of Economic Affairs, IEA, has commissioned a 10-member team of experts to develop and present papers on key areas of the 1992 Constitution for possible review. The experts include the Majority Leader of Parliament, Oseche Mensah Bonsu, the Minority Leader, Haruna Odrisu, a former Justice of the Supreme Court, Justice Stephen Alan Brobe, former President John Ejiokum Kufuor, and a former Chief Justice, Justice Sophia Ekufo. Others are the former Commissioner of the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, Justice Emil Short, a member of the Council of State, Sam Okudzeto, and the chairman of the Committee of Experts that drafted proposals for Ghana's 1992 Constitution, Dr. SKB Asante. Now, long list of what they are expected to present on. For example, Justice Short will be presenting on the excessive powers of the president. Mr. Sam Okudzeto will be presenting on the 1992 Constitution, proposals for amendment. The Professor Abochi will be presenting on development constitutionalism, building a trusteeship that works and benefits citizens. Now, we've been here before. We've reviewed the Constitution. We've gone to Ghanaians to ask for what they wish changed in the Constitution. Nothing worked. What sort of hope do you have for this work that the IEA intends to do?
Well, my only inspiration, as you read the report, is basically the caliber of persons that are involved. Otherwise, I would say it is a process that is just intended to find works for some people. Because we've had an occasion where the state itself has set up, a mechanism to help review our Constitution. And the entity that was established, the Constitution Review Commission, which was then headed by Professor Fiajo, if I remember correctly, or it was Professor Dankwa, with Professor Raymond Atuguba as the Executive Secretary. And a lot of work was done, nationwide consultations. A lot of resources were put into that. At the end of the day, there is a very, very elaborate document that was prepared, about a 1,000-page document, indicating what people said, the recommendations that people made, and what going forward we should do as a country. I think that document is really comprehensive, very specific to the issues, and anyone who really wants to look at amending the Constitution does not really have to constitute any new task force or any new group to look into the matter. The Constitution Review Committee report clearly spells everything out. And I doubt if any individual entity, be it an NGO or whatever, would have the resources to be able to engage in the way that the Constitution Review Commission engaged and be able to prepare that kind of elaborate report that was prepared. So if anybody is interested in reviewing the Constitution, I think we already have what it is that would guide us. At the end of the day, it all comes to whether the president of the day is interested in having the Constitution amended or reviewed. Because I remember this committee was constituted by Professor Mills, and from all indications, Professor Mills was interested in having the Constitution amended. And the Constitution Review Committee's report, appropriately titled it "From a Political Constitution to a Developmental Constitution." So I really don't know what would be new for a group like this to establish. We already have the framework. We have what the people said. We have what the people said they need. And if we are interested in amending the Constitution, let the state act.
All right. Now, if you go to the page 24, it says, "I won't reverse free SHS, President Akufo-Addo." Now, the President, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, has made it clear that he will not, under any circumstances, reverse the free senior high school policy. He said those advocating a review were those who initially opposed it. He explained that to the best of his knowledge, reviewing it means reversing the policy. The president disclosed this in an interview with the Nkoko-based Republic Radio 97.5 FM in the Kojo West Municipality in the Eastern Region last Friday to begin his 3-day tour of the region. We've been here before. We've discussed this one a couple of weeks ago where calls were rife for the free senior high school policy to be reviewed. Now, the president is forthright with it, says, no, I will not review it in any way. If you look at the current circumstances under which the policy is being rolled out, recently we've had issues with no food in some senior high schools. But the president is still, on where he started, that I will not review. From how you understand the policy, the challenges that the policy is going through, how do you or do not agree with the president on his stance that I will not review?
Well, first of all, if the president says I would not reverse free SHS, I don't know what he is responding to. I follow the media and public discourse quite closely, and I'm yet to come across any piece of advocacy that says free SHS must be reversed. In terms of review, yes, I've heard a lot of people talk about that, and I am for that. We've implemented the policy for the last 5 to 6 years, and I don't know of any policy that would say, look, this policy is so perfect that after some years of implementation, talks about reviewing it amounts to being asked to reverse the policy. I think that is really the tragedy of our country, and I think that is the problem that this government has, and that's why we find ourselves in the current situation, that we are complaining about. We have a leader who is very autocratic with his principles and with his views. It's almost like when I say this, that is what it is, and even if it turns out not to be the best, I'm still sticking with it, and damn the consequences. That is the kind of leader we have, and that is why we are where we are. Whether it is free SHS, whether it is ministerial reshuffle, whether it is going to the IMF or otherwise, we've had a situation where the president, just basically takes autocratic decisions, and once taken, that's it. It's almost like to review it would mean, I'm not the best, or I don't know what I am doing. And as I said, that is why we find ourselves where we find ourselves today. Go to the IMF. No, I wouldn't go to the IMF. We are a proud country and all of that. Free SHS. I remember when multimedia decided to do that fantastic job of speaking to parents, speaking to students to find out what are their experiences, what would they recommend? What did the president say? Oh, there is an advocacy against free SHS. And I think there cannot be anything more dictatorial than what we are experiencing today. We don't have to have people in military uniforms to say that we are under a sort of dictatorship. It's about the policies and whether the leader allows people to air their views, allow people to contribute to shaping policy, allow people to sort of articulate their concerns so that if we all establish that, look, things are not the way they should go, then we sit down, we judge and find a way to get us on the right path. But we have a president that if I say it is yes, you can disagree or whatever, but I don't care. I would continue to do what I would do. And that's why we are where we are. So I don't think anybody is saying that free SHS must be reversed. What people are saying is, look, let's look at it after 5 years. We need to review it. And I believe that, yes, we need to review. If it's about whether or not parents should make some contributions, whether or not what is the level of government's contribution to the free SHS policy, these are issues that we must discuss. The government is pretending that it is able to do everything under the free SHS, but the reality is that it is not. We're talking about the food crisis that we are all experiencing. We're talking about teachers complaining behind the scenes. Headmasters are unable to speak up. Teachers are unable to speak up. You go for PTA meetings and they will tell you, look, these are the basic needs. Ordinarily, we would have asked parents to contribute, but please, we cannot go public. That parents must contribute. So it's up to you. If you parents want to do something from behind the scenes, yes, you can do that. But as teachers and head teachers or headmasters, we are unable to make this public. That is the system that we find ourselves in. When you talk about it, people say, oh, that's not true. Which teacher is not able to speak? That is the reality. And that is when people talk about the repression, when people talk about the culture of silence and all of that, these are the manifestations. And I think that this will not help if the president continues to go on this path where what I say is final, my view is final. I think that is what has brought us where we are.
Looks like you are sort of disappointed in the response by the president.
Well, at this stage, I mean, if you look at what is happening across the country, the reaction from people, yes, there's a global crisis. We appreciate that. Every country is going through some sort of struggle. But in our case, it's as if this is the epicenter of the global crisis. And you cannot but certainly attribute it to bad leadership over the last 5-6 years. And it's all about a president who feels like, look, this is what I want to do. Nobody has the right to talk about it. Yeah, of course, you can talk about it, but I wouldn't take it. You can say what you want. And I'm going on, even if we are running into the ditch, as we've realized we are doing on many fronts. Yes, that's where we are going. So the disappointment is all over. It's not about the free SHS and whether we reverse it or we don't reverse it. I don't think anybody is calling for a reversal. We need our kids to be in school. We need the future generation to be educated. It's a good policy. But every good policy must occasionally be looked at. And then where we have to make adjustments, we have to make it. But if the president pretends and behaves as if, look, it was something that, is so perfect, cast in stone, nothing can be done about it, that is the sort of pretense that has brought us where we are. The economic challenges we are facing and all of that is down to the fact that we have a president who is like, me kebi, I will be and kebi, whatever I say is what it is. Meanwhile, we are told we are in the democracy, which is kebi, mami, kebi. But that's not where we find ourselves.
But in the past, his government has rescinded several decisions when the public had spoken against them. So can we really conclude that, in fact, what he feels that what he says must be final?
I'm wondering which the decisions that you are referring to. I mean, people agitated against e-levy, for example. What happened? It was introduced. People agitated against the National Cathedral. What happened? I think that is one of the, if I may say, the cardinal sins of this government in terms of how much money has been pumped, state money has been pumped into that project. Now it's a white elephant. The buildings that were there, fairly new buildings, pulled down, at the cost of the state. Judges having to be relocated. New buildings rented for them at the cost of the state. And it's sitting there, white elephant, because we don't have the resources to do it. People complained, people agitated, And what did he say? He said it's a priority of a priority. People started talking about going to the IMF maybe about 2 years ago. What did we have? Go to the IMF, go to the IMF. Finally, even a month before we went to the IMF, the government was still saying, look, we are not going. We are a proud country. We know what to do. We only went there, like somebody said, in an ambulance where we don't have control of ourselves and whether we choose to go to the hospital or not. So I don't know which policies that people complained about and the government rescinded. Dome level, people agitated. And what happened? They changed his date of birth, or they gave him a new date of birth and fired him. So that's the kind of government we find ourselves, we have. And what can we do? Of course, we are still in a democracy. It's certainly better than what is being experienced in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Guinea in terms of military being in power. But I don't think that we are having the best of leadership at this time.
Okay. All right. Now, the Ghanaian Times says IMF deal will reduce hardship. That's according to President Akufo-Addo. Parliament reconvenes tomorrow. Approval of 2023 fiscal policy high on agenda. Police gunned down armed robber. Another escapes with gunshot wounds. And Czech government honors Ghanaian businessman with national award. Now, the IMF story is on the page 16. It says President Akufo-Addo says he's hopeful the outcome of the International Monetary Fund IMF negotiations would tackle the high cost of living in the country. Now, he admitted the cost of living was high, but was optimistic that the package of measures which would accompany the IMF program would address the economic issues successfully and reduce the hardship of Ghanaians. I quote, "Yes, we are going through difficulties, but at the same time, we are trying to do well in other areas. The fundamentals of government policy is working. We have almost 121 District 1 factory completed and 300 of them in the pipeline," he said. So that's the president giving assurance that, well, things will be fine with the IMF coming into force. I mean, you just said a while ago that people advised that we should go earlier. We didn't. We went there on a stretcher, sort of. How hopeful are you when you hear the president say that, well, the IMF will indeed help us come out of where we are today?
Well, at this stage, that's our only hope. And so I'm not surprised that the president himself is hopeful that it is the IMF intervention that would save our situation. Because really, where else can we turn to? Our economy is in shambles. It's been mismanaged. The person who took over, an economy that was, well, I wouldn't say a very strong economy, has run us into where we are. And yet the president says, look, I would still keep him, whether you like it or not. Elsewhere, leaders would even say, look, even if it is to just get the public confidence and to get the markets to react, I will make that decision. I mean, Oforiatta can be at the presidency and still be calling the shots, even if he is not the minister. If you want him to do that, you can have it. But like I said, that is the kind of president or the kind of leader we have. At this stage, yes, we can only hope in the IMF bailout, and that's really our last hope. So it's not surprising that the president himself believes that that's where hope is coming from. And so let's look forward to what happens. I think we would have been better off if we had gone earlier.
But we've been here before. We've been to the IMF 16 times. We go there, we come out of it, and then we go there again. What must change? What must happen that is not happening, that we sort of seem to run to the IMF anytime there's danger? I mean, we would go there, we would be okay, and then we would come and mess up again and go back.
Well, it's just about a continuum of bad leadership over the period. It's not just in Ghana. In Africa, that is the tragedy of our continent. Having leaders who are not really patriotic and wants to see their country move forward, have a better generation in the near future or in the future. We've had a situation where, fighting corruption has become one of the most dangerous things to do. Domelevo lost his job because he wanted to really fight corruption. And they did the weirdest of things to get him out. Battling over when was he born. The person says, I was born, baptized, da, da, da. They say, no, we've discovered a new date of birth for you, and by that you are over 60, and so step aside. And what was the reason? Because he wanted to fight corruption. People would say, oh, he was talking too much, and da, 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 da. I mean, is talking too much a crime? So it's, for me, a continuum of bad leadership. And look, yes, what we are experiencing now, partly due to the global crisis, but mainly due to bad leadership. I think that the president himself knows that a lot of resources has, gone down the drain. We talked about the National Cathedral just a while ago. Which good leader would be focusing on a project like that, pulling down buildings, pumping in state resources when you don't have people having ordinary water to drink, when you have school kids still studying under trees, when you have school kids lying on their bellies to ride? Which good leader, who wants to have a country develop, would do that? You talk about free SHS. The people who would eventually get into the free SHS are not having chairs to sit on, are not having classrooms to sit in. And then you say you are doing free SHS. It's not a bad thing, but if you are truly committed and honest about it, and it's not for political propaganda, you wouldn't be wasting money in places like National Cathedral, state looting, luxurious private jets, and all of that. I am very sad because I really hoped that President Akufo-Addo would have done the kind of things that we will remember him for, leave a big legacy that we would all be proud of. Kwame Nkrumah died, before some of us were born, but we still talk about Nkrumah, celebrate him across Africa. Why can't we have a leader who will do the same thing? So that's why we continue to go to IMF. Mahama was there. We went to IMF, and previous presidents, we went to IMF. Now we are back to IMF with all the endowments we have: gold, bauxite, cocoa, timber, good resource. land, planting for food and jobs. We've been talking about it, propaganda, and today, look at food prices. Where are all the things that have been produced? One district, one factory. Last time I heard how many factories have been built in Ashanti region, and 27,000 people have been employed. And I'm saying, really? Why should we do this to our country? But that's the leadership we have, and we are in a democracy. As I keep saying, far better than anything military. And so let's keep doing what we have to do.
All right, very interesting point there. Let's do this on the daily, from the Daily Guide. It says, Nana opens beer factory at Nsawam. 2 more bodies exhumed from Mankesin killer's room. Government to seal IMF deal before 2023. Czech Republic honors Kumasi shoe factory chair. But over the weekend, your organization awarded some journalists for their sterling work. Those included our own JoyNews' Kwete Nate and Seth Kwame Boateng, who were awarded for their investigative prowess and reporting at the just ended West Africa Media Excellence Awards, WAMECA. I'll come to you, Seth, for your thought, but let me speak to one of the winners, who is our own Kwete Nate. Kwete, thanks for joining us. Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well, brother. I'm doing well.
You have to teach me how to ask how are you in Ghana. I could have, gone on that leg with you. But what does this award mean to you? I know you are a fantastic journalist, investigative-wise. You are just solid. Being awarded, being recognized for your work, what does it mean to you, really?
It means that hard work still pays. It means that investigative journalism continues, to blaze the trail. It has a future. It means that it has been done by someone. It can be done by others as well. It may be risky. It may require a lot of funds. It may require that newsrooms give space for investigative journalism. So for me, it's not about the plaques that we collect or the applause that we get from winning this award. But what it means has to do with the future and then the aspirations that some of these awards, inspire young investigative journalists who are hoping to walk in our shoes.
I know investigative journalism comes with its own huge challenges. What do you think needs to happen to, help you guys do the work that you do and live comfortably as you want to?
So using the story that takes this award as an example, it has rest. So you expect that the state would continue to give assurance to investigative journalists that no matter the efforts you put in place to hold those in power accountable, you can still do your work with the hope that you'll be safe and secured. Investigative journalism as one work that requires a lot of funding. In the U.S. where grants and monies are available for investigative journalists to tap into, we are hoping that in future these opportunities would be abound. Investigative journalists would not have to only rely on their media houses, to do their work, but they can tap into some of the resources to pursue their work. Yeah.
All right. What would you tell to young people, young journalists who would want to toe your line, become excellent investigative journalists in the future?
So it's not about the scheduled assignment. It's not about, the he said, she said stories. But one thing that stands tall has to do with the fact that when you invest in some of these stories, it pays. It pays. It's not about, chasing the little money that comes with covering these assignments. But, it's about the impact you leave on society. The smiles that you bring on the faces who, if it hadn't been you, their stories wouldn't have been told. Mm-hmm. So, yes, it may appear risky, it may appear daunting, but if you invest in investigative journalists as a young reporter, one day it will pay, as it is paying now.
All right. Thank you very much, Kojo. You are a big man, a very, very big man who is helping a lot of us here to get to where we have to. So grateful and happy for you that you received this award. I am sure that it will spur you on to do a lot in that area. What is the future like for Kojo? Okay, so that's it. We've lost Kojo there. But we still have Mr. Suleiman Abrahima with me on Zoom. So your organization has been awarding all of these journalists for the fantastic work they are doing. Over the years, you've done this for a while now. What do you make of the impact that you're making, this award is making on the field of journalism?
Well, it's one of the greatest things that we could do for journalists in our region. And if you talk to some of the past winners, the inspiration they get from this and how it builds a network for them, how it helps them even do better in terms of mobilizing resources to do more because of the recognition that they gain from this. Because really, this is big. And I must commend multimedia, because so far in Ghana, it's been multimedia that has been able to really save us. Because all the winners, since the last, this year was the 6th edition, has come from multimedia. Seth Kwame Boateng has been the overall winner before and has won 1 or 2 categories before. Kwete Nateo last year was a joint winner in terms of the overall journalist of the year with a Nigerian journalist, and this year won again. So it's been multimedia all this while, and it's a very, very competitive exercise. This year, for example, 952 entries from 16 countries, cut down to 40 by the first jury, then cut down to 25 finalists by the second jury. And remember, these are people, the jury members are folks who have done, it all, and not from West Africa. We had only 2 from West Africa, 2 from East Africa, 1 from Southern Africa. And so for these people to decide that, look, we think these are great journalists, the 25, and ultimately settling on 9 of them as category winners, I think it's really, really a big thing. And I believe that it's something that would continue to serve as an inspiration. As Kwete said, it's not about the plug or the money that you receive. The Pulitzer Prize is recognized as the globally the most prestigious journalism awards to receive, but it comes with $500. So it's about the recognition that you gain with this kind of award and the fact that it inspires you. Kwete, for example, and Seth, who won the investigative journalism category, would be sponsored by the Global Investigative Journalism Network next year to participate in a series of conferences around the world, which for me, again, opens up an opportunity for you to network with colleagues around the world. So it's a great thing, and congratulations to all winners. Congratulations to Kwete and Seth, and also to Multimedia for always being the organization that does it for Ghana.
Thank you. But I'm sure there are some experiences you've picked along the line that you feel we can better to make it more, to take it to the next level. What is that lesson that you learned that when worked on will make this one really move to that next level that you're anticipating?
Well, personally, I would wish that we have more women getting into the competition in general, and then ultimately having more women winners. I mean, I was really gratified when, for the first time, we had a woman winning the overall best journalist in West Africa, and also having three other women coming on as finalists, and having one of them from Burkina also winning a category. So I would encourage a lot more women to put in their entry. They may not make it, but who knows? Then the other thing is that this year we had a winner from Guinea-Bissau. All along, the Portuguese-speaking countries of Guinea-Bissau and Cape Verde had always thought that we don't consider them. But what happened this year is a manifestation that, look, all countries are competing, and any country, a journalist from any country is capable of winning. So it's more of encouraging more people to submit their entries from, especially the countries that are not doing too well. Look, I have had the occasion of having colleagues from Liberia and Senegal raise an issue because so far Nigerians have been winning it. And there's no doubt about that because they have far more stronger, bigger media organizations with resources that can invest in quality journalism. But then there are some people who are saying, look, we cannot compete with Nigerians. If you leave it to that, then it means that every year would have Nigerians winning it all. Is there a way to introduce a tier two competition so that some countries can also make it? But I think journalism standards are journalism standards and cannot make any compromises.
Wow. So it presents a challenge to all of those to then step up to get to the level of Nigeria so we can compete fairly and win as well. All right. I'm grateful to you for joining us this morning. Enjoy the rest of your day, sir. So that Suleiman Abrahima is the Executive Director for the Media Foundation for West Africa. But just before I wrap, let me do briefs from the other papers. The Finder says, NPA boss calls for efficient fuel distribution networks in Africa. 17 1D1F factories completed in the Eastern region, 16 more under construction. That according to President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. Cocoa price dispute, Ghana, Ivory Coast boycott meetings with multinationals. Well, maybe it's time for us to look into joining the area of adding value to our cocoa so we can participate in the larger area there. Now, so that's it for the Finder. New Crusading Guide says more resources coming. Kandapa Shore Security Services going to the IMF for bailout. An economist advised government handlers overlooked. Okay. All right. Now, former maritime boss fingered in a Dringan land attack as IGP releases suspect. Operation End Illegal Mining launched in Doma East. Ethiopia minister to recommend Jospon Group to his government. Publisher, Sam Jonah calls for urgent restructuring of economy. Zoomline grateful to government calls for continued support. Africa needs efficient fuel distribution network according to the MPA boss, Dr. Mustafa Hamid. Kandapa Lord Security Agencies for Peace in Ghana pledges government support. 3 to 7 minutes of sex is normal for men according to studies there. Now, the Meridian says will continue to resource the security services, according to Kandapa. Africa needs efficient fuel distribution network. MPA boss, we need update on the economy like COVID-19 and manpower warfare right. Akufo-Addo commissions Abomosu STEM model SHS. In Eastern region, 17 factories completed in 1D, 1F, 16 under construction. Custodian, we are keen on resourcing security agencies, security services, Kandapa says. Ethiopia minister to propose Jospon Group to his government, 296 factories to operate under my tenure, Akufo-Addo says. President commissions Abomosu model STEM SHS, and that does it for the Custodian Republic Press. Take my advice, Mahama tells government. Economic woes shall pass, Akufo-Addo assures Ghanaians. Armed robber shot dead in Ashanti region. 1D, 1F, 17 completed, 16 under construction. Cement price surge above 80 cedis. Depreciation bite manufacturers. One person shot dead at Ghana over land dispute. And that does it for the news review. Stay with us. We'll be back with sports here on the AM show. Stay with us.